Only for real grandkids, my father said, pulling the gift away from my 7-year-old daughter with a smirk. She just stood there confused while the other grandkids received their gifts. My husband looked at them, then at her, and without thinking twice said, "I will never forgive them for what they did to my daughter that Christmas. I've replayed every second of it so many times that the memory feels sharper than the moment itself. The truth is, my parents didn't ruin her Christmas by accident. They didn't overlook her. They didn't forget a gift somewhere in the back room. They made a choice. A cold, deliberate decision that a 7-year-old girl didn't matter as much as the other grandchildren. They planned decorations, food, playlists, matching pajamas for my sister and her 2 boys. Weeks of preparation. Hours of wrapping. And at no point did they decide that Mia deserved even a small gift with a dollar store ribbon. She had spent 3 nights painting a frame for them. She asked me if they would like it, if it would match their living room, if the glitter glue looked okay. She wrote Grandma and Grandpa on the back in the wobblier version of her handwriting and kept it on her lap the entire drive so it wouldn't get squished. We walked into my parents' house and the first thing I noticed was how picture-perfect it all looked. Candles burning everywhere, cookies laid out, music playing. My sister was already there, her boys unwrapping an early gift while my mom laughed like they were comedians on a stage. Mia stood next to me holding her little present. He kept looking around for a moment to give it to them. But they barely noticed she'd arrived. We gathered near the tree for the gift exchange. My dad was in full performance mode, reading names off tags, handing out boxes with big grins. My mom kept taking pictures of the boys tearing into their gifts. My sister bragged about how early they had woken up because they were just too excited. Gift after gift. Pile after pile. Never Mia's name. She didn't complain. She just kept waiting, legs tucked under her, hands in her lap like she had been taught. Then my dad picked up a medium-sized box, looked at the tag and said her name. Mia looked at me first just to check she heard it right. She got up, excited, already smiling because it was finally her turn. Dad stared at her for a second longer than made sense. Then he pulled the box a little closer to himself. Only for real grandkids, he said. He didn't laugh. He didn't wink. He said it like it was a rule we all knew. Then he set the gift behind him on a side table like it wasn't even worth being under the tree. Mia stopped mid-step. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just froze, staring at the empty space where the gift used to be. I felt something in me snap so fast it was almost dizzying. Years of small insults, comparisons, and excuses clicked into place like a puzzle I'd been pretending wasn't there. Before I could react, my husband stood up. Not quickly or dramatically. Just with a certainty that made the room shift. He walked to the tree and picked up the gift Mia had placed there earlier. The handmade frame she had been so proud of. We're taking this back. No yelling. No heat. Just final. My dad got up so fast a chair scraped behind him. He grabbed the frame from my husband's hand and said it wasn't for us to decide. That it belonged here. That we didn't get to change the plan. The plan? You don't treat a child like that and expect everyone to go along with it. But that's how my parents are. They've always assumed their version of things is the only one that matters. My husband looked right at them. Then I'm done helping with the business. Completely done. My mom's smile fell off her face. My dad opened his mouth but nothing came out. Even my sister looked up from her phone. Because that business plan was their golden ticket. They'd been counting on my husband's help, advice, and connections. They had meetings lined up after the holidays. My dad kept saying this was his chance to finally do something big. And in one sentence, my husband made it clear they lost that chance the moment they humiliated our daughter. We left within minutes. No one tried to stop us. No apology. Not even a half-hearted explanation. My parents just watched us leave like they weren't the ones who detonated the entire day. Mia didn't ask anything until we were halfway home. She sat in the backseat holding the empty wrapping paper from her own gift, the one she never got to give. She asked me if she wasn't a real grandkid. That's the moment I realized things would never go back to normal with my parents. And I was right. This was only the beginning of how far they would go. After Christmas, we thought silence would mean distance. That if we didn't respond, they'd get the message. We had walked out. We had made it clear. They humiliated our daughter and we weren't going to pretend like it didn't happen. But they weren't done. 3 days after that awful morning, my dad sent a text to my husband. No mention of Mia. No mention of what he did. Just a casual, almost cheerful message about the business. Said he was revving back up on the startup idea and wanted to get together later in the week to talk strategy. Like nothing had happened. My husband stared at the screen for a full minute. Then set the phone down without answering. That was his answer. A day later, my mom called me. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail saying she hoped we weren't still upset, because kids are sensitive sometimes, and maybe things got taken the wrong way. I don't know what disgusted me more. the voicemail itself, or how rehearsed she sounded, like she'd said this kind of thing 1,000 times before. And through all of it, not once did they say the word sorry. Mia had gone quiet. Not sad, not angry. Just quieter. She didn't bring up the gift again. She didn't ask when we'd see Grandma and Grandpa next. She just tucked the handmade frame behind her bedtime books and went back to coloring snowmen like Christmas never happened. Then my dad showed up at the grocery store. Not to shop. Not to apologize. Just showed up during lunch hour like it was nothing. Asked where my husband was. Said he had a couple thoughts about logos and wanted to bounce some ideas around. My husband was in the back. Didn't come out. Just sent me a message that said, "Your dad's here." I'm not talking to him. I drove there myself. He was standing by the register waving at customers like he owned the place. I didn't say much. I didn't have to. I walked him out the door and told him not to come back. He stood on the sidewalk for a second like he wanted to argue. Then he left without saying anything. That night we both blocked their numbers. It wasn't a big dramatic decision. Just a quiet one. Like locking a door and walking away. We thought that was the end. But within days it started again. More texts from different numbers. Messages from my sister saying we were breaking the family apart. That Mia would get over it and we should too. My mom left voicemails saying, "Let's just talk this through." None of them ever said what they were sorry for. Then exactly 1 week after Christmas, one of the front windows of the store was broken. Just one panel. Clean hit. Middle of the night. We thought it was random. Taped it up, filed a police report and tried to move on. Then it happened again. Same window. Same time of night. And again the next weekend. That's when my husband checked the footage. We'd installed cameras back in the summer after a break-in 2 blocks over. We had clear video. Crystal clear. My father. Gloved. Hood pulled low. Still unmistakably him. And in that moment everything shifted. This wasn't just about a gift. Or even a child. This was about control. We watched the footage 3 times before either of us said a word. It was the middle of the night. We were both sitting in the back office of the store, the lights off, the only glow coming from the monitor in front of us. It played silently like some cheap crime drama, only this wasn't fiction. This was my father. In a hoodie, gloved hands, hunched posture, walking straight up to the front of my husband's store with something long and heavy in his hand. He looked around like someone who wanted to feel sneaky, but didn't really care if he got caught. No mask. No rush. Just shattered the glass, stepped back, stared for a second and walked off like he'd just dropped off a package. My husband didn't move for a long time. Neither did I. There was nothing left to guess. Nothing left to justify. This wasn't a metaphor. This wasn't emotional damage. This was actual physical vandalism. Done by my father. And the moment the truth really sank in, I felt it in my stomach. That hollow, falling sensation you get when you realize you've passed the point of no return. We had proof. It should have felt like a win. A twisted one, but still. We had the truth in our hands. No more wondering, no more what. But instead it felt heavy. Like holding something radioactive. My husband didn't sleep that night. I dozed off for maybe 30 minutes before I woke up from a dream where I was back in my parents' house, sitting at the tree, watching my father hand out gifts to every child but mine. In the morning we sat at the table. Coffee going cold. He pulled out his laptop and started filling out forms. Police report. Insurance claim. Legal consultation. He didn't ask me if I was ready. He just knew I was sitting in that weird space between furious and broken. I told him to wait. Just long enough for me to say one last thing. It's not that I thought they'd deny it. I knew they wouldn't. I just wanted to hear it. I wanted them to say it. Out loud. So I used a burner app, got a temporary number and called. My mom picked up before the first ring ended. She said my name like it was some kind of miracle. Like she hadn't ghosted us for 2 straight weeks. Like nothing had happened. I didn't let her talk long. I told her what we had. I told her there were cameras. I told her we'd seen everything and that if they wanted to handle this any way other than through lawyers and courtrooms, they had exactly one shot. There was a pause. Then she passed the phone. And I heard his voice. Come, Pug. He said if we hadn't turned our backs on the family, none of this would have happened. He said this was the natural result of betrayal. He called it a consequence. Like smashing windows was just an unfortunate side effect. My hands were shaking by the time I hung up. Not because I was scared, but because of how casual he was. How convinced he still was that he was the victim in all this. When I walked into the living room, my husband had already resumed filling out the police report. I told him what was said. He didn't stop typing. Just said, "We're not doing this anymore." That should have been the end. But I stopped him. Not because they deserved mercy, but because I didn't want the satisfaction of court dates and police stations to be the only justice they got. I wanted them to feel something worse, being ignored. So I told him, let's make them pay. Not with lawyers. With silence. With isolation. With the fact that their granddaughter, the one they deliberately hurt, will grow up never needing them. He paused, then shut the laptop. That afternoon we drafted a message and sent it from the same burner account. It was simple. You'll pay for the damage. Every cent. We'll send the invoice. After that, never contact us again. If you do, we press charges. Their response came minutes later. A single word. Fine. No apology. No denial. Just the bitter acceptance of two people who finally realized they'd pushed too far. A check arrived 2 days later, signed and dated. No note inside. No return address. But we weren't stupid. We knew this wasn't the end. People like them, they don't take being shut out quietly. They come back in smaller ways. Sneakier ways. It didn't take long. 2 weeks after the check cleared, I got a message through Facebook. Not from them. From someone I hadn't spoken to in years. An old neighbor. Someone my mom used to gossip with over iced tea on the porch. She said, "Your mom's been saying some things about you at church." 2 weeks after the check cleared, things finally felt still. Not peaceful, just still. Mia was back to talking about school again. My husband was focused on getting the window replaced and planning a little customer appreciation week to rebuild momentum at the store. And I started sleeping more than 3 hours a night. I didn't miss my parents. I missed the idea of them. The version I had clung to for too long. The version where they were just complicated, not cruel. That illusion was long gone now. Then I got the message. It came through Facebook from a woman named Karen. A woman I hadn't heard from in over 6 years. She used to live 3 houses down from my parents. I remembered her as someone who loved drama and always knew everyone's business. She opened with, "Hey girl, I heard what happened. Just wanted to check on you." I ignored it. The next day, another message. This time more direct. "Your mom said you're not doing well. That you've been having a rough time and pushing people away. That you've been drinking more." I told her that didn't sound like you, but is everything okay? I stared at the screen. It actually made my stomach twist. That's how they were doing it. Through other people. Quietly, like smoke slipping under a door. My parents weren't contacting us directly. They knew better. But they had started a different campaign. One that didn't need confrontation. They were rewriting the story. And this time I wasn't even angry. I was stunned. Almost impressed. Because it wasn't just about saving face anymore. It was about control. My husband laughed when I showed him the message. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. He said, "This is what they do. They don't stop. They just change form." He was right. And then it happened again, a third message. This time from my old high school friend Emily. Someone who barely knew my parents but lived in the same town. "I ran into your dad at the post office. He said he misses Mia. That you're just going through something right now." I didn't know what to say. "Are you okay?" They were painting a picture. Calm, sad, misunderstood. The loving grandparents who were just waiting patiently while their troubled daughter cut them off for no reason. But the real surprise came from someone I never expected to speak up. My sister. She messaged me on a random Tuesday night, one line. They told me about the store. I didn't know they actually did it. I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure if this was her trying to defend them or herself. But then she followed it up with, "I thought you were exaggerating. I didn't believe you. I do now." That message sat with me heavier than all the others. Because for years she always took their side. No matter how obvious the favoritism, no matter how hurt Mia felt during visits, my sister pretended everything was fine. Now she wasn't. And I'll be honest, I didn't know what to do with that. But things didn't stop there. Later that week, a man came into the store asking if we sold locally sourced honey. Totally normal question. My husband showed him the shelf. The guy made small talk. Mentioned he was new in town, that he lived near the Franklin house, my parents' house. Then he asked, "You related to them?" My husband paused. Said, "Yeah, unfortunately." The man raised an eyebrow. "They said you were running into some financial trouble. Mentioned the store might be changing hands soon. Hope that's not true. I like what you've got here." We realized then they weren't just rewriting the story socially. They were trying to plant doubt in the neighborhood. Undermine the business. Spread this quiet little lie that we were struggling, unstable. That things were falling apart. That was the moment my husband stopped laughing about it. He pulled out his phone and started making calls. Because if they wanted to play this game, if they wanted to try and ruin us slowly sideways, they clearly hadn't learned anything. And we were done being quiet. I used to believe there was a point where even the worst people would stop. That at some level, even if pride wouldn't let them say the words, "I'm sorry," shame would kick in and they'd at least step away, go quiet, leave things alone. But my parents don't stop. After the third break-in, the chemical spill, something in me shifted. We had arrived at the store just after 7 a.m. My husband had a delivery coming, and I'd brought Mia with me because she wanted to see the Christmas lights we still had hanging in the window. The smell hit first. It was so strong it made Mia gag. I told her to wait in the car. My husband and I walked in and found a slick black puddle across the floor near the back wall. Several boxes were ruined. Shelf warped. The smell was somewhere between gasoline and paint thinner. Whatever it was, it had been poured in through the old window frame, the one we hadn't fully replaced yet. The one they knew about. I didn't even need to look at the cameras. I already knew who it was. But we checked anyway. 3:13 a.m. A person walks up with a hood over their head. Small frame. Moves differently. No hesitation. Just walks up, pours something through the crack and leaves. It was my mother. That's when everything inside me went cold. No more what? No more they wouldn't. No more excuses or silence or waiting for someone to come to their senses. We called the police that morning. An officer came within the hour. Another followed. They took photos, watched the footage, took statements. They didn't say much, but I could tell they were stunned. No one expects the criminals to be someone's grandparents. We gave them everything. The video, the damages, the history. The officer told us to keep all receipts, take detailed notes, and prepare for court if it came to that. Then we called our lawyer. Within a day, he had drafted a formal cease and desist letter. Legal documentation outlining everything. The harassment, the damage, the trespassing, the continued attempts to slander and manipulate. We had the legal footing to press full charges. But before we sent anything, we agreed to one last move. We emailed my parents through the lawyer's office. No more texting. No more burner numbers. Just a clean, official notice. Pay the full cost of the damages to the business, including the cleanup, product loss, and labor. Stay away from our home, our store, and our child. Do not contact us again. Next time it goes to court. We were expecting silence. Instead, 2 days later, a check arrived. Full amount. Every penny. But this time the check wasn't signed by my father. It was signed by my sister. At first I thought it was a mistake. Maybe they'd convinced her to send it on their behalf. Maybe she was still playing middleman like always. But then I opened the envelope fully and found a yellow sticky note tucked inside. It said, "I'm done with them too. I'm sorry it took me so long." I stared at it for a long time. Out of everyone, I never expected her to walk away. She'd always been the golden child. The one who could do no wrong. The one who watched everything unfold at Christmas and still said nothing. Later that night she messaged me. Told me she'd confronted them. Told me my mom admitted to the window and the oil. That my dad said he didn't regret sending a message. She said she hadn't believed us at first. Thought we were exaggerating. But after that last incident and the video proof and the way they talked about us behind our backs without any remorse, she finally saw it. She said, "I didn't realize how much they manipulate everything. I thought I was the exception. I'm not." It was the first time in my life I heard her say anything like that. I didn't forgive her right away. I didn't know if I ever fully could. But I thanked her. Because in a storm of lies and rumors and silent treatment, her stepping forward was the first real acknowledgement that we weren't crazy. My parents didn't reach out again. The only thing we heard was from an old neighbor who said my dad had been keeping to himself, and my mom had quit the church committee. Rumors had started circling. People were asking questions. Not because of us, we never told anyone. But word has a way of spreading when the story is too ugly to stay buried. They were unraveling. Not because we fought them, but because we stopped fighting. We stopped engaging. Stopped defending ourselves. And people started noticing who was screaming into the silence. We never pressed charges. Not because they didn't deserve it, but because we wanted the last word to be the one they feared most. Nothing. No attention. No chaos. No reaction. Just silence. And that silence was louder than anything we could have done to them in court. Some people think cutting off your parents is a last resort. That once you do it, the door is closed and life goes back to normal. But that's not how it works. You don't just shut the door. You have to keep it shut over and over, every time someone tries to pry it open from the other side. And even when the knocking stops, you still hear echoes. At first, it felt quiet in a way I wasn't used to. I didn't realize how much of my energy had been going into anticipating their next move. The fake messages. The guilt. The spin. When it finally stopped, the silence was jarring. But in that silence we started to rebuild. Mia smiled more. She stopped asking questions about them. Stopped checking the mailbox for cards. I think deep down she knew long before we did that something was broken. Kids always feel it first. The store bounced back faster than we expected. Our neighbors, the ones who really mattered, came out in support without even knowing the full story. Customers we hadn't seen in months showed up. Some said things like, "I've been meaning to stop by," but their timing was too perfect to be coincidence. Word had gotten around, but not from us. We didn't say a thing. We let my parents burn their own bridges. And they did. Over the next few months, pieces of their lives started falling apart. My father's startup idea, the one he was so obsessed with, the one he thought would finally give him a legacy, collapsed. My husband had been the glue holding that thing together. Without him, all my dad had were half-baked concepts and a list of people who no longer wanted to work with him. My mom. She had built her entire social image on being the perfect matriarch. The involved grandmother. The church volunteer. The woman who always had a story to tell. But when you remove the illusion of a close-knit family, people start asking questions. She quit the church committee, for personal reasons. Her circle got smaller. And then we heard from my sister again. She didn't come back into our lives, not really, but every so often she'd send a message. Small updates. Apparently things at my parents' house weren't good. My dad had started drinking more. My mom had turned bitter. She blamed everyone. Us, my sister, the church, even her friends. Never themselves. Not once. They lost more than we ever could have taken from them in court. And honestly, I don't feel sorry for them. Because they knew what they were doing when they singled out my daughter. When they used a 7-year-old as a pawn to prove a point. When they pulled a gift away from her with a smirk and called her not real. That wasn't a mistake. That was who they are. We gave them every chance to stop. To apologize. To own what they'd done and maybe rebuild from there. Instead they doubled down. Then tripled down. Then vandalized a store owned by the man who once offered to help them build something of their own. Now they sit in the wreckage they made. We've moved on. Fully. Mia's thriving. She's in dance class now with friends who cheer her on. We celebrated her birthday last month with a backyard party and not one conversation about my parents came up. It was the happiest I've seen her in a long time. Sometimes late at night I still think about that Christmas. About the way my dad said those words, only for real grandkids. And I think about how God really does see everything. Because what they gave that day was cruelty. And what they've received since then, slowly, painfully, piece by piece, is exactly what they deserve. We didn't have to destroy them. They did it to themselves.